Media.
Welcome back to Ignite Your podcast. I'm your host, Austin T. Gullett, and we're here to have genuine conversations with authentic people to help amplify their voice and figure out what ignites their why. Today's guest has spent several years working in the sports industry. She currently serves as the president of the Black Sports Professionals chapter here in Cincinnati, and she is currently working towards her MBA at the University of Cincinnati. I'm so excited to have this conversation today. So let's give a warm welcome to Shaumia Turner. Shaumia, how are you doing today?
Doing well. I'm grateful to be here and excited for our conversation today.
I'm super pumped. You go to the wrong school in Cincinnati, but that's
That's
okay.
crazy.
I'm a Xavier alum, XU for life. But
You know what? I'm loving the private schools these days, so I appreciate it. All love.
well, I love connecting with new people. I love connecting with people who work in the sports industry. I've worked in the sports industry for about 4 or 5 years now. So it's been
Mhm.
a journey, and I think everyone's journey in sports is different. And I'm just curious to kind of dive into your story a little bit and see how you got to where you are and who is Shaumia Turner. So let's just hop into this. So, what is your story?
It's a loaded question. I grew up competing as a dancer. I've been able to win world championships and really train heavy, but that was just from the love and support of my family being a backbone. I had a father who ran track and who played football. And then for my mom, she was very creative. So it kind of merged the two worlds of my parents. Um, I was the youngest of four on my mom's side, but I was my dad's oldest. And in that, I've navigated a lot of pathways from being in, private school, from being in public schools, moving around a lot. But the one thing that we always had was family. So I've never missed a beat. I never felt like I went without with anything. Obviously, moving from the city to the suburbs was a little bit of a culture shock for me. But once I was able to transition and get my footing, it actually helped me as I navigated through the workplace and through my journey and career because I have the blessing of being able to connect with everybody from every walk of life and really just humanizing everyone. I'm grateful for my journey, and uh, I've learned to open my mouth now and just ask for it what I want and what I need, and it's definitely clear pathways just by being good to people. So,
I think it's
yeah.
interesting how like our childhood experiences truly shape us into who we are as human beings because you never really look back and think about it until you're older. And I'm just like, oh, like looking back at my
Mhm.
childhood, I realized like going through this and doing those certain things shaped me into
Yeah.
who I am today. Um,
hmm
m- I do have a question. Were you born and raised in Cincinnati or where did you grow up?
I was born and raised in Cincinnati, lived in Madisonville. So I went to St. Francis de Sales. Had I stayed there, I would have went to Purcell Marion. My church is still out in Madisonville, so I'm there all the time. And then we moved out to Westchester, as a family, and I graduated from Lakota East.
Gotcha. I was like, I wasn't sure exactly like, cause like that's the thing in Cincinnati. It's like, where did
This
you
is
go to
what I did.
school?
Yep.
Which is kind of weird when we ask that question. Everyone's like, high school. I grew up in Northern Kentucky. I grew up in Covington, which is essentially Cincinnati in my eyes. Um, but I saw that you went to UK for undergrad.
I did.
Um,
I did.
what was that experience like for you, kind of going away and living an hour and a half to 2 hours away from home?
It was interesting. I definitely got homesick um, from being away, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to kind of break away from the nest. I
Mhm.
was studying sports medicine at the time. I was studying kinesiology, and Kentucky was the place to go. If Kentucky gave me a scholarship, I was going to go, and I did. So during that time frame, this is premier basketball time. So you had Anthony Davis, and after that, Devin Booker, Carl Towns, and like Tyler Eulis, the Harrison twins, like Nerlens Noel. That was like this premier basketball gold. But then
Yeah.
even on the football side, you started to see Zadarius Smith, who's still playing in the league today. It's a beautiful like moment now looking back and just seeing that even in being in sports medicine, I was a part of that, right?
Hmm.
But the campus is different now. The building that I lived in no longer exists. It's been built over, so it kind of makes me feel old because it's a decade later, right? Well, more than a decade later. That ages me a little bit. But yeah, so I mean, it was a great experience, but I knew that I was transitioning my path into occupational therapy and just being focused and going into more of the psych realm. UC was more the area field of where I needed to kind of
Hmm.
finish out. So that's why I transferred later on.
I mean, I'm a big UK basketball fan. I wouldn't say like I'm a blue neck. I kind of just grew up a Kentucky fan. I feel like when people ask me like, "Who's your favorite college basketball team?" I have three. I have NKU, I have Xavier, and I have UK. And those are my two alma maters. And then I just grew up a Kentucky fan because of my
Kentucky
dad.
fans, yeah.
They're crazy. Kentucky fans are
They're
crazy. I will
the
tell you
best.
that.
They're the
they
best.
they can be the best, and then in some eyes people see them as the worst because they're so passionate. And I think that's the thing is people see passion sometimes as like arrogance, and it's just like, nah, we're confident, we feel like we're gonna win the championship every year. Do we?
As they
Absolutely
should.
not.
In our hearts and minds too.
I mean, I think it's time. Like it's been since 2012. Like we need
I
to
know.
get something back. And let me ask you this: like being a sports person, what was
Yeah.
your thoughts when John Calipari left? Me personally, I felt like it was time, like it was needed.
Mhm.
Um, but like, what were your thoughts as like not like an alum, but like someone who went through the school and has like ties to the school like deeply? Like what were your thoughts on all of that like madness when it went down?
Um, there's always a lot more to the picture than
Hmm.
what is seen in the public eye, and that's something now working in pro sports and baseball and studying in football. Like you really know that there is a lot more to the story, and it's tough because that was a connection that we had, a bond that we had. But I do believe that it was time, and everything happens in seasons, and that's something that you learn quickly working in sports. That the next year, the next day, the next opportunity is not guaranteed. But I do think that he did an excellent job in developing so many players that has come through that university. So we have to pay homage to the work that he's done to develop so many people in a short period. Well, not short period of time, but for the time that he was there, because a lot of the players who he coached and developed are still
Hmm.
playing in the league, and we're 12, 13 years later, and they're thriving. Kudos to him, but there's always time for evolving.
Yes, and I think the thing with sports is like it's like you said, it's always changing. I think sometimes like people get too attached to certain things and people don't realize the business side behind everything. Like there's always
Yep.
something else that goes on. And I think the
Mm,
most interesting thing about sports is the experience that we get to put on for
yep.
people.
Yep.
That people don't necessarily realize like going to a game is an experience. Like there's
It
people
is.
that make this happen for you, and it's very unnoticed. So you said you studied psychology in undergrad. What was that like? What made you decide like psychology was the path? Because you started with exercise science and just transitioning into psychology. Like, what was that mindset and like what made that decision for you?
Well, I think it helped too that I was in sports medicine as a whole because when I was
Mhm.
studying occupational therapy, that is just a medical doctor version of psych. You're teaching people how to reoccupy their space. But, being present, I worked in corporate healthcare. There were two things. I worked a few years in corporate healthcare, and during that time, this is pre-pandemic and during pandemic. That really took an emotional toll because everything then that I could just go to work and do, I carried that home with me.
Hmm.
And then I think the final straw of everything is, being present to see, the Tua situation, the DeMar Hamlin situation, and like one judgment call could cost you your career, but you're responsible for real lives. And even though I love the medicine side of things, I love the human body and how it works. I love how the brain works, the mind works. I started to grow a deeper appreciation for working on the business side of sports, and that's where I got my foot in, is on the business side of sports. So as I spent more time in it, as I started to see a lot of scenarios play out, I just felt like it was time to pivot. And the beauty in psychology is on the business side. It actually benefits you just as much as a business degree or any other degree, because you get to learn how people operate. You get to move and make business decisions based off of consumer habit, based off of team building and work culture and morale. And you're able to grow the business from there. So when you're having a very logical conversation, you can talk about empathy in a way that shows some form of performance metric, and
Hmm.
make people think about things that they may not have considered otherwise. And that's something that I've been blessed during my time with the Reds to be able to kind of grow that.
I love psychology. It was my focus in undergrad. I didn't major in it or minor in it, but I took a lot of psychology classes. And I think it's always interesting because I think it teaches you critical thinking skills along the way because it makes you think outside the box and look at things differently. I will always say my favorite class in undergrad was leading with emotional intelligence and learning and understanding your emotions, understanding how different groups of people perceive you, because like your close friends perceive you differently than your coworkers perceive you differently than your family, and it's just like in different spaces and how you react to things. It's amazing how like your mind works and how it kind of all intertwines together. And I think you took an interesting path. Like most of the time when you're working in sports, it's like you are going to school for it, you're starting from the bottom, you're like kind of just grinding it out. And I think that's one thing that is hard about sports and working in sports is like you do kind of have to start from the bottom, and kind of like it's about who you know and the connections you make. And I know you spent some time working with the Cincinnati Bengals before you went over to the Reds. So like my question for you, and just being the sports nerd that I am, is like with the non-traditional track that you took, how did you land that first job? Was it based off of just connections you made throughout your career, or was it just like how did that happen for you?
I think so. When I left Kentucky, at that point, I was trying to navigate what I wanted to do. Just
Mhm.
because I knew like kinesiology wasn't the route for me, but I knew I wanted to stay in sports medicine. But I wanted to get my foot in the door somewhere, and I saw a team shop opportunity pop up, and I came in with my resume, walked in with my just prepared to do all of these elaborate things, and they're like, "You came prepared, you're hired," and it was on the spot. But it was a team shop, right? So a lot of people don't
Yeah.
realize that is a whole stream of, like, a very important stream of revenue for the organization. And at the time, that was fully owned by the actual Bengals organization, and the only people that I really reported to was the manager, and then it was the merchandising manager. So that's like pretty much it's only two people above where I was. So during my time there, I was working two other jobs. I was going to school, and I realized that I can utilize some of my skill sets on the merchandising end, and being able to help. I had a big heart for community, so we would have volunteers to come in, work games, and they'll fundraise for their organizations. A lot of people thought it was on food and beverage side, but there was a whole opportunity on the Bengals end as well, that provided those opportunities for nonprofit organizations. I kind of just took the reins with helping. I showed up every day. I did my part, and just built community and a family there. But I know I needed corporate experience, I was in medicine, sports medicine, so I ended up going to corporate healthcare. Um, and in that, while maintaining that and becoming a mom, like they've seen me graduate with degrees, they've seen me become a mom, they've seen me in so many transitional phases of my life. It was definitely a beautiful experience for the time that I was there. But yeah, I just felt like I didn't need to take a traditional route. I didn't need to work my way and navigate. I tried that route. It didn't work for me. And for me, I'm a problem solver. So if I can't get in the door this way, if I can't navigate, if I can't progress this way, what is the angle that I can bring in that's going to elevate me? And then also reading the room and knowing like when it's time to transition as well. And if I can't maximize, my talents in this space, it's a beautiful space. But if it's not best serving me, it may be time to
Mhm.
transition. And I actually end up going to a BSP event, and the senior representative, people in culture, he was one of the panelists for the Reds. And he was like, "We're hiring." And I said, "Great, these are my skill sets. I want to apply. Give me the opportunity to sell myself." And 7 interviews later, I was going across the street, still working part time for the Bengals.
How many interviews later?
Seven, seven
You
in
said
a week and a
seven?
half time span.
Seven.
7 of them. So the
That's
first
insane.
4 was the actual interview, but the other ones, I think it was just seeing where my strengths lie within the team
Mhm.
to figure out whose team was I really going to be a part of. And that's how I got into group sales. Even in that, like that's definitely the way that I've navigated my role there has changed just because I'm just so unorthodox and I want to see how the whole business works, on a community standpoint, on a give back standpoint. So it's been transitional along the way, but nothing that I've done has been a traditional route. So I encourage people that when it's time to pivot, if there's somewhere that you want to be, um, don't hesitate with making the leap. But in the meantime, like just be careful how you treat people along the way because your name will carry with you no matter what field of work that you work in. It's definitely helped me.
Yeah, and I think just like hearing like you talk about your story and like your journey to getting into sports, it's like the one thing that stands out to me is your work ethic. Like you put into work and you like went above and beyond and like you separated yourself from other people. And I think that's the biggest thing is like there's so many people that want to work in sports. There's so many people that want to do the same thing that you're doing. But if you're not willing to put the work in and separate yourself, that's going to be like what makes Shaumia different? What makes Austin stand out more than Bobby over there in the corner? And I think those are the things is like you're always kind of in competition. So you always want to try to put that best foot forward. And I think that's the biggest thing is just hearing you talk. And I'm like, it's not, yes, it's not the traditional way, but like you
Yeah.
separated yourself by doing the little things and doing it well.
Yeah, thank you. And I think a lot of people assume that so many people are doing it the traditional way.
Hmm.
So it doesn't give you a competitive edge doing it the traditional way. There are some jobs in certain careers within sports where you need to, but for the most part, if you're able to sell yourself and provide perspective, that's going to meet a business need. And that's not just in sports, that's with any corporation. You'll be able to navigate your journey just fine.
Yeah, because I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for me just talking to people. I think that was the biggest thing for me is I was like in college and I had a guest speaker from FC Cincinnati come in and I was just like, hey, like this is what I want to do. Like, how can I get there? Like, I just picked his brain and he was just like, oh, like, let me introduce you to so and so. And I was just like, that's the thing is like, you have to network as things. And I think growing up, now like when I'm working in education, like when I was growing up I didn't really have like a ton of people kind of like telling me like network besides like my mentor, like he was big on it. But now as I'm working in an education field, I tell these kids, I'm like, you have to network, you have to talk to people yourself. Like I'm not gonna, like I'll help you and I'll support you, but I'm not gonna hold your hand and like walk you through this. Like I want you to get the courage and go talk to this person yourself. Like that's part of growth. Like you have to grow in certain aspects of life, and networking is one of the biggest ways to help yourself. And I think it needs to be done more often.
Yep. I know one of the things that early on in working in sports, I literally sat in a position, for so long, just expecting to say, if my work ethic is this great, and I'm always driven, if I'm always doing my part, like, then I should just earn these opportunities. Like, they should come to me. And, like, it wasn't until I started to open my mouth and say, hey, I know my value, I know my worth. This is what I've been doing outside of the organizations. This is what I've been doing inside of the organizations to really contribute. So, what does next step look like for me? What do I need to develop with on? Like, what skill sets do I need to sharpen? Where can I find mentors? Where can I find shadowing opportunities, volunteer opportunities? And from there, that's what kind of navigated the transition for me, is finding a space where I felt like home and I felt valued. I know that I have that now, and those questions are now conversation starters across the board with whoever I speak to within the organization, from ownership down to board members to HR and my direct leadership, because we formed that bond. And just being confident in who you are. To me, no matter where you sit in a position, you're a person, you're a human being. And that was something that sometimes people were like, wait a minute, that's so and so. And I said, okay, they're a person, they're a human being just like you and I. So I like, we don't have to make a ruckus out of who somebody is. Now we respect the role, we respect their rank, we respect their position,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. But I'm not going to treat anybody differently than the human beings that they are. And that was something that my mother taught me, because we're all just as valuable as the next person. We
Mm-hmm.
all breathe the same air. We all have the same colored blood in our veins. So regardless, 3, 4, 5 years from now, who knows what I'll be? Who knows what I'll own? Who knows? Like, you never
Mm-hmm.
know who the next person is. So from the ground crew to the cleaning folks to, the top executive partners, I treat everybody the same. We're all in the same playing field. I gratefully have a work culture
Yeah.
that accepts that, which I love.
And I think that's a beautiful thing is like we're all the same deep down inside, and I think that's a beautiful way to put it because like I've learned that along the way as well is just like especially working in professional sports, like I see people kind of like freaking out over seeing athletes, and I'm just like they're a person. They just happen to play a sport for their job. Like, I like that's just how it is. It's just like, yes, they're really good at what they do. I'm just like, I just don't like. I see why people idolize them, but I feel like a lot of times, like social media has a lot to say in that. Like, they get pushed to the media, but like people are like, oh my god, like you met so and so. I'm like, yeah, like he's a cool person. Like he's a human. Like outside of playing soccer, like he is a human. Because I worked at FC
But
Cincinnati
I
for
feel
three
like
years.
us as a culture, we create that. We
Mm-hmm.
create this sense of false of reality, whether it's actors, whether it's athletes, whatever it may be. Like, because oftentimes our systems make it seem like these goals are so unreachable or intangible, and a lot of these goals are a lot more tangible than what we think. And I think we need to be more intentional about making sure that people have that level of
Mm-hmm.
accessibility where they know that they can be the next CEO, they can be the next athlete, they can be the next Olympian, whatever that looks like. And also, but that goes back to us being very present for young people, so they can see that we're the person next door. We're not so far away where you can't reach us. And
Mm-hmm.
I understand the level of exclusivity. I understand all of those things, but that's just a false reality. I can meet you at the same grocery stores. I can see you in the same public parks at the same concert. At some point, we, as the professionals, have to go back to the young people and show them different.
And I'm right there with you. I agree with everything that you're saying. I think we as like adults and professionals have a duty to not only just like pave the way, but just show the next generation that it is possible. I think that's kind of why I'm in education. I always knew I wanted to work in sports, but I also knew I wanted to work with kids because they're our future. And I think every kid has a promising future. It's just we as adults have to give them those resources to be successful. no matter where they come from, what they look like, anything of that. Like every kid deserves the same opportunities across the board. And that's just who I am as a person, is like that's who I am as a core. And it kind of wants me to like segue into this next segment here because I was talking about my passion and those things kind of like ignite my why and doing things that I love to do. So my question for you is, what is it that truly inspires you? But most importantly, what is it that ignites your why?
I think my inspiration is my journey, right? And then the fact that I'm a mom. So for me, I have a 5-year-old boy who's looking up to me and look at everything that I do. And I became so much more focused after becoming a mother and seeing that I have to live for somebody else. I have to live for others. And obviously I love I love me. I love being able to do cool things and accomplish things, but none of that means anything if I can't pay it forward because somebody paid it forward to me. So what ignites my life is the generational growth and opportunity because so many people fought and died and sacrificed just so that I could be in the room that I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
It's my duty to be able to continue that on and to make sure that my shoulders are stable enough for somebody else to stand and go beyond even what I do.
I think it's interesting because I just had another guest on here, and part of her reason for her why was like her son as well. And I think it's just I haven't experienced this because I don't have kids, but there just seems to be something that happens when you have a child that kind of changes your perspective from what I'm gathering. um, and like, what is that like? I I'm not a parent. I'm a dog parent. But I live for my dog. No, I'm just kidding. But like, what is that like? Just knowing that like you have this little human that you're kind of raising and growing and teaching them like core values and helping shaping them into who they are. Like, what is that like, and how does that feel? Like, I just want to dive into that a little
It's hard. It's hard because I
bit.
don't. Well, I still have the 9 to 5, right? But on top of that,
Mhm,
game day. So like my schedule was not simple. So I have
mhm,
to pivot, and kids are on their own schedules with their life. So when I went into my current team, in the interview, I was just like, we're a package deal. You know, he's attached to my head. That is my little person, and if you want me for this role, if you feel like that I would benefit the organization, just know that he comes with that. So his needs to be prioritized, and I communicated that very early on, and people were like, absolutely. And some from the perspective of having children and having that strained relationship just because they're away from home so much and they understand why it's a priority. But for those, we're shifting in culture where being a parent is
mhm.
being a good parent and being a present parent is important to corporations. Um, from for now, you know that we are in that season where that is a priority. So I also have the privilege to to have that transition of where there's nursing suites in the ballpark where people can go and breastfeed and pump and we have certain things in place for family leaves and
Mhm.
so we have those things in place, but I also have a great leadership team that is flexible with me to make sure that I can be present for my kid. And there's a point where every Friday morning my son would come in. Sorry guys, I'm in circles. But my son would come in every day on a Friday morning just for like
Mhm.
20 minutes. And he would go around the office and he would shake everybody's hands and high five everybody. But he built that bond with everybody in the room.
Mhm.
And I think just showing him that he has to work, the reason why we're able to do X, Y, and Z or go on this trip or do these things is because mommy has to go to work every day. So you have to do your part and go to work, and do well in school and, continue to earn what you keep and save money so that you are afforded opportunities. Because he's given a lot just being a part of me, and being a part of his dad naturally. And being exposed to so much more than what a lot of young people, even me as a young person, was exposed
Yeah.
to. You have to keep those pockets, and he's very respectful. He's very mannerable. He's so loving. He can defend himself. He's strong. He's in martial arts, right? He's starting t-ball in May, but he's learning discipline, and he's learning, respect and rapport and hard work, and that's a testament to the work culture that I have, the family that I have, the community that I have, and the expectations that I set
Yeah.
coming in the door.
And I think you're seeing that like change professionally across the board. Like there's even like when I was working at FC Cincinnati, like I started when they were building the stadium, and they made sure that they had a family room, like for mothers when they needed to feed or change diapers and things of that nature. But I work for a nonprofit called Activities Beyond the Classroom, and even just seeing like some of my coworkers there, like when they've had like maternity leave and when they came back, like they created a room for them to have like the privacy to pump and to do the things that they needed to do to still be a mom. And I think that's just like the culture change that we're seeing. I think it's becoming more acceptable. And I think that people are realizing that our kids are so important, like they are our future. And I think having a present mom and dad is very vital. So, like, yes, there's work that needs to be done, but I think let's be humans about this and realize like there's more to life than just a job. Um, I feel
And the
like,
reality is, like, when I first started in sports and I first had the pump, like it was me going and locking my boss's door in his office, and he just allowing me that 30 minutes of time to just nurse. Like, so it wasn't always like that where I had a dedicated space to be able to do that. But it was those present leaders. You don't have, if even if it's not company wide, just like your direct leadership is also like your rapport is important in the way that you navigate things as an individual when you're in that position. That matters.
yeah, and it's just one of those things where you, I'm glad to be a part of like the change, like that generation, and it's just important. Like I think, like you said before, like we're all the same. We're all humans, and we have to look at people humanistically. I don't even know if that's a word, but I just made it one. If it's not, but you want to see people for who they are, and I think that's the beautiful thing about just life in general is being able to connect with people and being able to see them for who they are as a whole and not as just like a job title or a statistic or a stereotype that is put on them. So I kind of want to hop into this next segment here. It's my favorite segment of the entire podcast. I'm a big mental health advocate, and I feel like if there's an opportunity to talk about it, I'm going to talk about it. So my question for you is just how have you been taking care of yourself mentally?
It's crazy. I just had this conversation yesterday at a funeral service, and somebody was like, "Are you taking care of yourself?" And I'm like, you know what? No, I haven't, because I realized, like, at one point I was very disciplined with my workouts. I was very, disciplined with my eating habits. I was very
Mm-hmm.
disciplined with, making sure that I had an organized calendar and navigating, all of these elements of life. And like, I just had like a few months where it's just like, you know what? I haven't been as disciplined. I haven't gone to my stress lab appointments as much as I should have been. And that's my me time. I haven't been doing those things. So I think the biggest part of mental health is identifying when you are not doing what you need to do and just being transparent. And that's something where I've learned is being transparent where I am, and what I'm capable of doing. I know that therapy is important. Do I go? Do I know that working out is important? How many steps am I getting in a day? How many workouts am I doing? What's my caloric intake? Like, and these are not things that I'm ignorant to because I was in medicine. So
Yeah.
those, I think, being transparent with where I am is the biggest thing. And even when we talk about work culture, I think a lot of times we think about everybody being a melting pot, which really bothers me because that means you're stripping people of their individual beauty. I think of people like a tossed salad, right? We all have different acquired tastes. We all have different flavors. We all have different, elements to a salad, but we all contribute to enhancing the overall dish at large. So I think creating cultures where different people and different mindsets and different are embraced as equally valuable.
Yeah.
And creating that space, which sometimes can be a challenge, because we always like to be around people who are like-minded, which is
Hmm.
also good too, and having those pockets where you can have those in-house, at-home conversations. But I think it's a beautiful thing to kind of have people who think differently than you, who won't justify your behaviors, who will push you to be better and be different, and go outside of your comfort zone. And I have that in community. I have that with my family. I have that, you know, just with my chosen family as well. And it's definitely helped me. And somebody checked me yesterday, having accountability partners, like make sure you're doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to make sure that I'm going to check in on X, Y, and Z days to see what your progress looks like. And that was the most beautiful thing. And I feel oftentimes when people are asking questions, they want to give a very different answer, for what sounds
No.
good, and I just can't do that.
No, I think the biggest thing is being real with ourselves. Like I tell people all the time, is like I know when I'm having a good day and I know when I'm having a bad day, and I'm very transparent with that. I will let my boss know, like, hey, today is not a good day for me. Like I'm here, but like I'm probably not gonna be able to give you 110%. I'll probably only be able to give you like 30 today. Like it's just one of those days. And I think the hardest thing for people is accepting and and like recognizing and admitting to that they need help. Because like yes, like life be life, and it is one of those things where there's going to be your highs, there's going to be your lows, and I think that's why I'm always transparent of with how I'm like feeling. I know like there's certain things that like I need to change to kind of help me get to where I want to be. And like you said, like working out is one of those things that like I want to get back into. I literally had Orange Theory reach out, and they're like, hey, the credit card we have on file is about to expire. I said, yeah, that's my way of canceling my membership. Um, I'm not coming in to give you a new card. Like, it's just not happening. I
Something in my soul.
can't. Like, that is canceled. Like, I'm not I'm not coming back. Like, it's just one of those things where financially I was just like, I can't afford this anymore. But one of my biggest habits is like not eating properly, and you never realize how much nutrition like affects you as a whole, not even just mentally, but like energy wise, just trying to get up every day and just be present and wanting to work is those things of just there's certain things. And I think it's nice that you are being transparent and realizing like, hey, like I'm not where I need to be mentally, because it's easy for us to kind of get lost. I think like once we get to a point where we're like, oh, this is great, we stop doing those things that got us there, because it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna take a day off, and a day turns into 2 days, to 3 weeks, to a month, like, and it's kind of like a ripple effect. And I think everyone attacks mental health differently. Some people are they just lie and just hide it all the time, and some people are very transparent and honest about things. And I think we're in a place now in society where talking about mental health is a little bit more normalized and easier to do. And I think in the past it was kind of frowned upon, where it was kind of always seen as like kind of a weakness. And then I try to tell people like there's power in sharing your emotions, there's power in understanding how you feel, and it's not a weakness, it just shows your strength, because you're able to recognize how you're feeling and what's going on.
I think too with that, now that we're in that point of identifying what that looks like, not just staying stuck there, being solution based, because that's
Hmm.
something where once you identify what you're dealing with, how can you get yourself to a point where you can be better? What are the little habits that you can change in your day to day to get yourself in a better state, and something that's realistic that you can be consistent with and you can be proud of that you've been able to hit, and know that it may not be an everyday thing, but for the most part, I'm taking a step to getting better, and I'm not making unrealistic goals, and I'm not having to over medicate, and I'm not having to, whatever that may look like. Mental health is very important, but being realistic in that journey, which means that us who are doing great in our careers and navigating our industry, we have to be realistic about what that looks like.
Hmm.
I feel like sometimes people go into these paths and these journeys, whether it's in career, personal life, and they see these sound bites of life on socials and on media about how great things
Hmm.
are going, but people are not understanding and knowing the process of what it takes to get there. The shoulders we had to stand on to get there, the doors that we had to knock on to get there,
Yes.
the sleepless night that we had to have, and that takes the most emotional, mental, physical toll. But one thing I do appreciate about my parents' generation is how resilient they were, and just being able to be like, you know what, but we're going to do it anyway. And I think sometimes that's frowned upon, I believe that it shouldn't be. You should still do it anyway, even in the identify where your mind is at, so you can perform better, so that you can get yourself
Hmm.
in a better space, so that you can operate based off of where you are, so you can grow. But I don't think you should just stay stuck in that's a suppressed state without finding a way to pick your way back up.
Yeah, and I think you said it the best. It's like social media is a sexy highlight reel. That is all it is. People are going to show you the highest of highs and the best moments that you can possibly see. And it can be discouraging because I feel like we live in a society where it's easy to compare. And I had this conversation on this podcast multiple times. It is so easy for us to compare ourselves to what someone else is doing. Just because I have a podcast, I can see someone else doing a podcast and they might have more plays, they might have more followers, but they could have been doing it 3 or 4 years longer than me. And I think the thing is everyone's journey is unique to themselves. Like my time frame is different than someone else's. And do I still compare myself to people? Yes. Like I think that's just a common thing to do. And it can be discouraging, but if you just change that mindset to be like, hey, like they probably went through some shit and got here because this is where they're supposed to be right now. And I feel God's timing is everything and my time will be my time. And I feel like people just need to understand that just because it happened for them right now doesn't mean it's not going to happen for you later. But like you said, you don't know what they went through to get there. You don't know how many no's they were told. You don't know how many times they thought about giving up and they persevered to get to that point. I think it's just being patient is a big thing, and just trying to refrain from comparing yourself to other people is a vital thing to do, especially in the world we live in with social media.
Yeah, and numbers is not everything. The quality of people of who you have in the room is very important. And I think sometimes we'll think, oh, we have this many people following us. Well, why are they there? Like, what is their purpose?
Hmm.
Are they fulfilling something back to you? Are they pouring back into you? Are they putting out some substance? Are you providing mentorship? Like, what is the dynamic of those relationships? Or are they just numbers just to say that all of these people are influenced by you?
Quality over quantity.
Always.
And I think that's the thing is like people see like, oh, this person has 1 million followers. Okay. How many did they buy? Like that's the thing is like some of these aren't organic followers. And I think that's the thing is like trying to build things organically takes a lot more time. Or like I could easily go and buy X amount of followers or whatever it may be, but why? Like let's organically grow things. And I think we get caught up in this like thing of like followers means popularity, followers and likes means success, and that's not the case. And I think that's kind of like the mindset I have with this podcast now is like I don't care like how many streams it gets. I don't care how many likes I get. Like I can post a thing and get 1 like and I don't really care because I know that this podcast has a bigger meaning and I know that the platform I have is making a difference in someone's life. If it's one person, then I'm doing my job. And I think that's the biggest thing is you have to take the small wins. And kind of like one thing like you were saying is like I used to always do micro wins for the day where I would write down 3 goals of like this is what I want to accomplish for this day, and if I do it then I won that day. um and it's kind of those things of like people always want the bigger picture and they want to meet the end goal, and like they sometimes set unrealistic expectations. So it's kind of like okay, let's take a step back and like break this down. Like wins for today would be like, okay, waking up and brushing my teeth is a win. Um, eating 3 meals is a win, and just going to the gym, like those, like check those off, like I won today. Like, and I think those are like the little things of like changing that mindset of like, okay, like what can I do now to make sure that I'm, because what happens in the future is what's going to happen in the future. But if I'm not present in what's going on right now, I'm never going to have that bright or promising future if I'm just going to struggle and stay in that struggle. So I think you had some points there, and I just wanted to go back and touch on those a little bit as well. So it just made me think of that.
That too, and I think sometimes the win. I think of people like Ryan Coogler. You know, how many short films did he make before he
Hmm.
got to Fruitvale Station and he teamed up with Michael B. Jordan for that? And then look what came from that. Everybody will have their own Fruitvale Station, right? And whatever comes from that comes from that. But he stuck with his morals along the way, and even though it may not have been the easiest route, one short film out of all the work that he created before, one short film made it to
Hmm.
Sundance and got a platform, and from there it created so many more opportunities for him. And he went from the extreme of just one short film into the extreme of doing the Creeds and the Black Panther, like going into those universes. It's a very tough thing to do, and to be able to stand your own and to execute such all of the groundwork that he did behind the scenes to get that one moment for Fruitvale Station, regardless of what the
Yep.
catalog looked like. And that's where sometimes the work and the grind and the training that is happening behind the scenes that a lot of people don't get to see for this finished product. Um, that is what's going to prepare you for the next step, not the moment that you think. And I just watched the podcast earlier this week, and they were like, most people, by the time people get to the stage, you get to see their performance. You're not seeing of their work. And they used the
Hmm.
example of Usain Bolt, where total we've seen him on perform and compete and run for a composite of 10 minutes of time, right? But it took 10 years of training. So
Yeah.
for us to see him as at a full 10 minutes of time over his career. So his career started when he was younger. His career started when he started training. His career started, on those developmental ends. And then by the time that people saw the finished product, all that was the performance. So
Yeah, and I think of like the Olympics when you're talking about that. Like
yeah,
you have these people working for years to this comes every 4 years. And I think of like track and like the 100-meter final. Like you're working effortlessly for years just to run for 9 to 10 seconds. And I think that's the thing is like you said it perfectly is like people see the performance, but they don't always necessarily see the work that you have to put in to get there. And I think you're going to be told no multiple times along the way. And once you get that one yes, it's going to feel amazing. But people people strive for that yes and they want the yes, but they always often don't want to put that work in to get that yes, because I feel like again we live in a society where people feel like things should be handed to them, and kind of just gifted. And I tell that to my kids all the time is like if you want this, like you have to do it, like you have to put the work in, you have to do it yourself. And I think back to like one particular student that like I have now, I'm not going to say any names, but they're very adamant about like what they want to do, and they always ask me questions and they're like I want to talk to this person or I want to talk to that person. Go do it. Like don't wait on me. Like don't have me like I'm not going to be holding your hand when you leave high school and go off to college. Like you're going to have to hone on these skills, and that's called growth right there. Like that I'm pushing you to grow as a person, and I'm not going to walk you through life because I'm here for right now. Like I'll be there to guide you, like and help you along the way. But there's going to be a time where you have to let go of that chain you're kind of holding on to and break open and be that person for yourself. So that's what I try to teach my kids is take responsibility, because you're the pilot of your own life and you have the control and power to be whatever you want to be, but you have to put the work in to do it.
you can't coddle them because life is not going to coddle you. And that's
Hmm.
very, I mean, that's the ideal way of going about teaching and educating and giving that true sense of reality. So thank you for doing that and being that leader to push them to want to
Thank
do it
you.
themselves and opening their mouths so that they can, walk into the rooms that they're wanting to do. And obviously, there's always a way to go about it, right?
Hmm.
But being persistent, being consistent, having that substance behind you, I mean, that's the start. It, obviously, there are other steps, there's other factors that do impact, somebody's ability to get into a space, into a room. But the one thing that people can never take away from you is your discipline. People can't take
Hmm.
away your education. People can't take away all of these different factors, your character, your name. Like these are things that will follow you in all aspects of your life. And as long as you move with integrity, what is meant for you, what God has for you will happen, and whatever that may look like.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I think that's just, I don't, it's just one of those things where like you just got to embrace the moment, embrace what you have, and take pride in who you are as a person. I think that's the biggest thing is the only you're going to be your biggest cheerleader. Not everyone's going to be in your corner all the time, and sometimes like that's hard to accept, but if you don't believe in yourself, then no one else will. And I think that's the biggest thing is you got to cheer for yourself, you got to root yourself on. It's hard sometimes, and sometimes you might feel alone and like you're on an island, but you just got to take it one day at a time, and everything's going to work out the way it's supposed to. And I think that's just the beauty of life. That's
You
just
know,
how it works.
it is. And I think sometimes when people have to earn something, they look at it like it's a deficit or like
Hmm.
it's a bad thing. But if I have to earn it and I work 10 times harder for it, I'm not saying that I should have to for my counterpart, but if I do, you know what? When I'm in the room, I'm able to navigate that space so much stronger and I'm able to sustain. And you can tell the difference from what's given and
Hmm.
what's earned very quickly. And I think that's even when you think about in sport, right? You can tell the people who train, you can tell the people who have the proper training, the people who put in the hours. Who some people have natural talent, but there's a lot of people who have natural talent who don't train and phase out. And it's
Hmm.
oftentimes like we look at the turtle and the rabbit case, and the turtle still wins. So despite of like whatever barriers or oppositions that you may face, like utilize that to fuel you. Because at the end of the day, there are a lot of things, especially in the industry, that will be given. It will be inherited. It will be whatever.
Hmm.
That's the name of the game in corporate America at large. Because being in sports is still corporate America. But when you come into the room and you stand out and you do things differently, or you build up so much time and so much money and resources and experience where you can go in and be like, you know what, I'm going to be a minority owner in this sports team, or I'm going to contribute to do this, or I'll have my own, firm to be able to consult on this standpoint and work for myself and hire these teams of clients or whatever that may look like. There's so many pathways to navigate, and that's why I'm so much more grateful for my untraditional route. Because for single mothers, for young women of color being in the sports industry, and navigating the business side of the industry, and not just
Hmm.
being the athlete, not just being the person who is on the cheerleading squad, and even for our cheerleaders, like for the Bengals, you had dietitians, you had medical nurses, the professionals. Like a lot of people don't realize the substance of women that are in
Yeah.
the industry. So I challenge people to look beyond the surface level and just see what it is that people have to offer, because you never know, like where you can get your corporate partnerships with, where you can get your mentors through, like your words of advice to navigate the industry, and it's
Hmm.
more than likely the people who you least expect, because people don't always share everything and give everything up front.
Yeah, I think the thing is you'll never know if you don't try. And I think the thing is in life we're gonna have those trials and tribulations, but everything's gonna be a lesson. You're gonna learn, you're gonna grow. And I think you said it the best is like you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't put in the work, like that talent's gonna take you nowhere. There's that quote that people always say is hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I think that's the biggest thing is you can be the most talented person in the world, but if you're not gonna put the effort into be a better person, because like yes, like you're good now, but like you can be great as long as you continue to work at it. And I think that's the thing, is having the mindset of always wanting to improve. And that's just in life itself, because you can always grow, because there's always a higher place you can go. And I think you just got to continue to put that work in. People get stagnant and they just stay on a course where it's like, no, like what can I do and to hone in these skills and to continue to improve.
And nobody owes you anything. At the end of the day, nobody owes you anything as much. And when you
Period.
work for other people's companies, you work for other people's companies. It's their company.
Mm-hmm.
So until you begin to work for yourself, even for your consumers, they don't owe you anything. If you want their business, if you want, you have to provide service. Like we get away oftentimes from community service. And one of the things that I was having a conversation about is that people are like, older people are set in their ways. So when you think about those consumers, they're so set in their ways. No, you're just not selling in their buying, like their buying
Mm-hmm.
language. Their buying language is service and relationship, and oftentimes corporations have omitted service and relationship and community from their business plan, thinking that if you cut these edges and you just go this route, and that's what's
Yeah.
going to grow the business. And oftentimes it's not. It's if you want brand loyalty, if you want corporation loyalty, if you want team loyalty, the way that you treat your consumers, your fans, your community, your staff, your
Mm-hmm.
partners, it's what's going to create that loyalty, not just capitalizing on everybody all the time. And I feel like that's a lot of times the downfall for so many people. And I just want to tap up even for the organization I work for now. Like a lot of people, we haven't had a winning record in a while. But you
Mm-hmm.
know what? So many people are loyal to the organization just because of how they feel. The fact that they can go into a space and there's a nursing space for mothers, there's play yard areas, there's sensory rooms for those who have ADA needs and are having a moment and a meltdown. There's so many things that are in place that is making the game accessible for a baseball accessible to everyone, no matter who you are. And
Yep.
it just getting away from all the things. Just no matter who you are, let's make this space accessible for everyone. And we pride ourselves in that. So yeah, I'm
Inclusion is
grateful.
important, and I think
Yeah,
when you know your target audience and you find ways to include everyone, that's when you're going to seek success. And like you said, no one owes you anything. I think you said it the best, is like you're right, no one owes you a thing, so you're going to have to continue to dig deep and work. And I think that's the beautiful thing of life. But I just wanted to really just say thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know you're kind of in the busy season because baseball season's here. So I do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to just chop it up with me. And I've really enjoyed having a conversation with you. I feel like I know you a little bit better, and I hope we can continue to just connect and like get to know each other a little bit more, because I love picking brains, especially with people who work in sports and work in the community, trying to find ways to collaborate, and things of that nature. But if anyone wants to continue having a conversation with you about anything that we've talked about today, what would be the best way for them to get a hold of you?
there's a few different ways you can get in touch with me. First of all, before getting into that, I want to thank you for creating this platform because this is conversations that people need to hear. And even if a million people are not looking at it now, these are pivots that people can go back and see.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see you growing in such an astronomical way. And I am just very proud of you and the way that you've navigated your platform.
Thank you.
So let's clap it up for you first.
Thank
Um,
you. I appreciate it.
of course. And then secondly, there's a few ways you can reach me. If it's just getting on socials, my Instagram is just Shaumia underscore Turner, SHAUMIA underscore Turner. My LinkedIn is literally my first and last name, Shaumia Turner, and it may have NBA candidate on there. And then if you want to reach me on my work email for the Reds, it's just sturner@reds.com. Or if you want to reach out to BSP and learn more about BSP, you can go on bspcincy.com or email me at membership@bspcincy.com. So, all the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it again. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know working in sports and being in season, it's always chaotic and crazy. So I do appreciate it. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening to this amazing story today. I'm going to put all of Shaumia's information in the description below. If you all happen to reach out to her, please just tell her how you found her. It'll be greatly appreciated. I'm sure she'll appreciate it as well. Again, thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you give us a follow on all social media platforms. It's at Ignyte Your Why. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, you name it, we're there. And if you're watching this on YouTube right now, make sure you stop what you're doing, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn the post notification bell on so you never miss an episode. I love you guys so much, and I appreciate you. Always remember, find your purpose, ignite your why, and I'll holler at you guys later. Peace.